A lot of people find themselves doing cardio for years and they can sustain effort for a long time, but they don't look or feel the way they expected. So what's going on? Well, cardio builds fitness, but not necessarily the body composition change that they're after, because fitness and body composition are two very different things. Doing something like a class or running or anything cardio related can burn calories in the moment, but doesn't necessarily make the underlying changes that we need to see for long-term progress from a body composition. Because calories out now versus calories out over time are where a lot of people misunderstand this concept of burning calories in order to achieve body composition changes. So when people come through our doors and they've been doing cardio for a long time, they often feel like they've improved their fitness, but they're frustrated. They are constantly putting in the work, but those results are not showing in the mirror. So it's important to distinguish the difference between fat loss and body composition. Fat loss is fat loss. It is straightforward. Body composition is losing body fat whilst also improving our shape through increasing muscle mass. So when it comes to cardio specifically, what is that doing for fat loss versus body composition? Well, cardio creates a calorie deficit, specifically within that session, but it doesn't actually preserve muscle tissue. And muscle tissue is what gives us the shape. Whether it's broader shoulders, bigger arms, bigger glutes, it is muscle tissue that creates that shape we desire. So when we look at fat loss, if we are aiming to achieve this without muscle stimulus, then we are essentially just going to create the same shape that we currently have, but a little bit smaller. Not to mention that the body responds and reacts to repeated cardio and makes itself more efficient, which means over time, those classes or that run that you're doing is no longer burning the same amount of calories that it did when you first started your journey. So what is it that we actually need to see in order to achieve that body composition and shape change? In simple terms, we need to do resistance training. Now, resistance training is often misunderstood. People think it must be going to a gym and lifting heavy weight. But resistance training is essentially just moving any sort of resistance, whether it is going to the gym and using machines, whether it's going and using dumbbells or barbells, whether it's doing it at home with just body weight movement. If there is resistance to that movement, it is resistance training. So why is that beneficial? So why is this beneficial to body composition? Well, as I've already mentioned, muscle is what creates the shape we desire. By doing resistance training, we are building that muscle, and especially when we focus our resistance training on those muscle groups, we can build shape in that area and create the desired shape that we're after. Not only that, when we resistance train, we break down the muscles. And when we do so, that requires energy for them to repair. Meaning that despite a smaller calorie burn during session versus cardio, we are still actually using up calories in terms of energy in order to repair the muscle post-session and down the line. Once we have repaired that muscle and we start increasing our muscle mass, then we are increasing our daily calorie burn as well. Muscle is what we call an expensive tissue, meaning if we have more muscle, we are requiring more energy to power it. If we are requiring more energy to power it, then we can increase our daily calorie burn, which is going to be of much greater benefit to our overall fat loss goals than doing individual cardio sessions once or twice a week. Our client Johnny is a great example of this. When he first came to us, he was doing cardio most of the time. As a busy director of a global company, he often found himself struggling with time to fit exercise other than cardio in. Because when he was short on time, cardio was something he knew how to do. He came to us specifically knowing that resistance training was going to be the differentiator between that stuck position he was finding himself in and the body shape that he wanted. By training with us a couple of times a week whilst keeping his cardio outside of the gym, not only was he able to drop his body fat percentage by 9.3%, but he also added 1.7 kilos of muscle mass at the same time. Had he carried on with the cardio, he'd have just become a smaller version of himself. By incorporating resistance training with us, he dropped body fat whilst making his shoulders broader, creating a V shape that he wanted, and making himself a lot stronger. Now, this isn't me saying cardio bad, resistance training good. Both of them have their merits. The key here is looking at the framing in which we look at cardio and resistance training. It isn't which one's better for fat loss, because in general, neither of them are. Cardio is fantastic for improving your fitness, improving your heart health, and improving the efficiency in which your lungs work. Resistance training is fantastic at building muscle and increasing bone density and helping with strong joints. When we frame both of these for what they actually are, i.e. not focus on fat loss actually becomes easier because it's easier to do both of them when we look at how we're going to benefit from them long term versus doing them just for a short term focus. Naturally, as we continue with them, fat loss will occur. Because of the benefits, we still incorporate cardio into our program. However, it just looks a little bit different. Rather than having a client here doing 45 minutes on the treadmill, they're going to do a short burst of high intensity as a finisher at the end. Or we build the cardio into their programming and lifestyle outside of sessions with us so they can get the best balance of both. Now, the biggest objection we hear to actually starting resistance training is someone coming in worried that they are going to get bulky. Doesn't matter whether they are male or female. A lot of people see in their gyms someone who's been doing resistance training and looks big. But the thing to bear in mind is that they look big because that is what they are training to do, and they've been doing it for years on end. When someone first starts resistance training, typically the reaction is body fat's going to drop and they're going to see increased muscle definition before they start adding bulk. And in all honesty, to get bulky and to really pile muscle on, we need to be in a high calorie surplus, i.e. eating more calories than we're actually burning off. And we need to be training at maximum effort and intent a lot more regularly than most people do. The truth is, it takes a lot to build muscle. For most people coming through our doors, they can see an increase of 0.5 to 1 kilo of muscle in 4 weeks. Spread that across the whole body, and we're not going to see it all that much. Not to mention when they get later on in their training life cycle, and it goes down to 0.25 to 0.5. So if the concern is that you're going to get too bulky by adding resistance training, I can tell you that that's not going to be the case. And in fact, you're going to see the results that you're after a hell of a lot quicker. So with all this, you might think if someone comes in and says, I love running, we're going to say, well, you're going to have to stop. That is definitely not the case. When it comes to long-term health and fitness, we want to incorporate enjoyable exercise. If someone loves running, loves cycling, loves their classes elsewhere, then fantastic. All we look at doing is building the program around it, making sure that what we do from a resistance perspective is not going to stop them from doing what they enjoy, but rather improve their effectiveness in doing it. So whether it's running or cycling, they can do it for longer, or they can do it quicker, or they can do it injury-free. So if you are in this position of doing cardio all the time and not seeing the results, and you walk through our doors, having not tried lifting at all or have tried it once and fallen away, what does starting with Thrive look like? Well, we always focus on building in the technique before we go too heavy. We take our time to make sure you are comfortable performing the movements as they should be and gradually pushing your limits a little bit at a time. Most first-time lifters will see huge strength improvements within 2 to 3 weeks. It is insane how quickly someone can get a grasp of a movement and then start adding weights on, feeling stronger, and as a result, feeling like they've got so much more energy, so much more focus, and more motivation to take that next step with their goal. By weeks 4 or 5, we actually start seeing those results show up in our body composition scans, but also we notice that our clients start feeling a lot more confident, not just walking through and performing resistance movements here, but starting to go out and do extra sessions in a commercial gym near them, or even doing bodyweight stuff at home. So if you're someone who is watching this, having done years of cardio and not seeing the result, that is a signal that something needs to change. And in terms of what needs to change, the honest answer is not effort, it is not frequency, it is not duration, it is the tool that you are using. And if you don't know how to implement that tool, that is exactly what the free intro visit at Thrive Fit is for. It isn't just a conversation of how good we are and how much the investment is going to set you back. It is a genuine look at your starting point from a body composition perspective and from a routine perspective. Together, we will build your plan and show you exactly how it would look working with us. And the thing is, that plan is yours to take away, whether you sign up with us or not.